Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Coach's Corner University podcast. I'm your host, Paul O'Neid, and today I'm joined once again by my dear friends, Sarah and Francesco Catalano, the owners of Catalano Events. And we're going to talk about their upcoming meet that they're hosting in a few weeks now. A little bit about the challenges that they face in business, the growth of Catalano Events and the experience that they offer lifters, and the business around hosting competitions. And then we're also going to get into a topic we haven't had the opportunity to chat much about, which is how to improve your health and fitness as parents. And I think that's something that's going to hit home for both coaches like Francesco or clients like Sarah, who is Francesco's wife and best client. I can say best client, right?
Uh, I don't want to really give her that title, but she does well. Yeah.
I used to be your most annoying client, and then eventually I realized you were probably right, and I started accepting, and then I became a better client.
Yeah, she's basically just become someone who just eats what I feed her, and that's really it. There's no real client coach relationship here. I understand that once you get married or get into a real relationship, you kind of lose all authority,
Yes.
and they no longer respect what you have to say and seek out that advice elsewhere that from people that you don't respect. Like we'll get into it maybe, but we recently got into a little bit of a fit for her joining another training app when I told her what to do and we were doing
that's
it.
where we still butt heads is on the training.
But then she comes back after she learns that I was right and what I said was what they're doing. But it's fine.
Hopefully our first domestic abuse on the podcast doesn't take place today. So tell me a little bit about the meet that you guys are hosting. So it's coming up in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
What's been some things that have changed over the years? I know you guys had to change venues at the last minute this year. Like what's going on?
Yeah, so will be our fifth event, and the challenge just comes with setting the expectation that we're always going to go bigger and do better and make the production that much better for the lifters and everyone involved.
I will say that is our own doing, by the way. That is completely on us. We are the ones who say that we'll do that. So we're not saying the expectation comes from anyone else but ourselves.
Oh, yeah. This is totally us. That's what we want.
Yeah.
That's always been our goal to put on the biggest events in Canada, and just continue to top that. If you want to be the biggest event, you got to do better than the event that you have last.
Right.
And it's only becomes challenging because you run into issues when you try to do that and set this bar. People seek that, and you can't take steps back. Sarah's kind of made that very clear to me that you can't go back at all, which is fine. But recently, we had this venue secured. We were going to do it in this huge hall event space that was going to be awesome. It had some really great perks to improve the production. We're going to save some of that. Maybe we'll talk about it. I'll let Sarah spoil it if she wants to. But we are going to go back there in the summer. So while they canceled on us last minute due to unforeseen power outage that they have to do for maintenance, we will be going back, and we're really happy to go back and work with them. They were really great and accommodating up until this point.
I just want to hit on that really quick because I really don't know how much people realize. Like, we didn't post or say much about it because we didn't want people to freak out. Like some people, if you get an email that says, "Oh, sorry, we can't host your event," you're immediately in your brain like, we are effed. Like, what are we gonna do? You could make some kind of public announcement about it, but why would you want to do that? Like, let's come up with a solution first. So he immediately got on the phone with anyone he could find.
The issue is that 7 weeks out, you can't change locations because people have already booked accommodations, travel, all that stuff. Yeah, you can't change the date, can't change the city. So we're in a big city, but it's not big at all. It's quite small, being in Guelph. So we are very limited in the spaces that are available to us. And we can't go to a neighboring city or anything like that to open up, to throw in a bigger net or cast a bigger net. So started calling everybody, all the gyms, all the schools, all the arenas, everything's booked. So we're half day booked, and like we need a full weekend to make this event happen. So it became very, I don't want to say bleak. I was still very confident we'd figure something out.
I was freaking out. I was like, we're going to have to cancel. It's going to ruin our reputation. No one's ever going to sign up with us again.
And I'm just persistent and too optimistic. But that's okay. But we ended up finding our previous venue. And while we felt that we had outgrown it,
right,
at the time, we have now made strides in networking with the right people to figure out how we can basically just blast the space into becoming this amazing thing. Shout out to our buddy Mike. I'm going to try to pronounce his last name, but he's absolutely fantastic. He works and owns his own company for audiovisual production and putting real concerts and festivals together. And so for us, it's this really big event and production, and for him, it's this tiny small thing that he's just
right.
Just putting this thing together seems so simple, but his brain and just knowing what's available out there, because we don't know what kinds of things that we can bring to the production to make it feel like a huge scale production. He does the kinds of lights, the type of lights, the height of the lights, where we want it, whatever. His brain is, he knows what he's doing.
But we thought about things where we came up short last time that we wanted to improve on, I should say.
Right.
Some of the things around the sound system and where the platform was, because we moved the platform to a different spot within the venue the second time, but we still felt like it was too bottlenecky right in the middle. So
and a lot of wasted space.
Yeah, a lot of wasted space. So we have a whole new layout. So we're now going into the same venue with a third layout that we feel like it's actually going to work for the full production that we had planned at the university initially. So we're excited about that. We do not look at it as a step back at all. And we've gotten minimal to no concerning feedback from the lifters. We're just very open with them, the communication about it. Everyone's totally on board with it.
I think many of them understand we're still going to bring that level of production that they expect and why they signed up. Right. I don't want to throw numbers around, but we're putting over $5,000 into the production itself, to transform.
We're taking a hit. We're taking a big hit
it was always going to be expensive on the production end. That, and it doesn't include the live stream. The live stream, is another exorbitant cost. But the production level itself, with making the space feel like a grand stage, is going to be not so big, but it is going to be very big. But we're going to be able to do that at this new venue, and we were kind of worried about that before we got a chance to go back and explore it with our team to make sure we had the right power voltage out of the electricity and the space and taking measurements.
So much
because we knew that we couldn't go back and do the same layout that we did before because there were issues. But now with this new layout and the new way that we're going to approach it, it's going to be super cool. I'm really eager and itching to go back to it.
It's an opportunity when you don't own the venue that you host in, because 90% of the other meet directors, they host in the gym that they own, and that's totally fine. But it does limit you in some ways to how you can improve, right? Which again is fine. Some people sign up for meets and they're totally fine with it being the same the next time. They know what they know, and that's fine. So it's cool that we get to explore new venues each time, but it also comes with this kind of situation where we lose the control and they can cancel on us 6 weeks out, like what happened. And that's rare, but it can happen. We learn. So we just have to be ready, and we've done a pretty good job at, pivoting and figuring it out and finding a way. So we are having a little bit different of with the timing for the meets this year. So the first one is the end of April this year, whereas before it was more like March. And then our second meet, the fall meet, is going to be at the beginning of August, because Nationals is in November this year.
Right.
We wanted in Ontario. So we wanted to give people, I think it's like it'll be
Something like 16 weeks
16 weeks
or
out
more.
between our meet and nationals, so that if
Mm-hmm.
people did our meet, they still felt like they had
Yeah,
time.
that and the university, because it is a university, they do use that venue during the school year in September when the students go back. It is a pretty
Right.
busy time. So
Yeah.
we were kind of forced to go back a month, but we're happy about that because
Yeah.
August makes it really easy to go move equipment outside and find people to
Yeah.
go do
Mm-hmm.
things. People are available, and it's a lot more pleasant than in the fall or early spring.
Who knows? Maybe we'll do a third meet in
I mean,
2025.
maybe.
I think whenever you're running any sort of business, though, there's unforeseen circumstances that you kind of have to approach with a level of urgency, but also an element of level-headedness, because the problem still has to get solved.
Yes.
But when you feel like you are kind of out of control of the situation, it's extremely stressful. So the fact that you guys, okay, here's a question. How do you manage that level of stress while also living together, raising children together? How do you create boundaries?
Oh, well, we don't.
Well,
We don't have boundaries.
we
No,
compartmentalize the tasks at hand. Sarah panics and sits with it all day while I take the action and come up with the solutions. Well, not the solutions. I get she comes up with the solutions, but I do the groundwork to go get those solutions while
Right.
she's still figuring out how it could happen. And I just like I said earlier, I am very persistent, and
Mm-hmm.
eventually we come to a conclusion that is either good or bad, and I just move on, and she sits with it.
Yeah.
Uh,
So in this specific example, I really was thankful that we had two brains in this situation, because I think it was like my idea to call Lyft, and it was your idea to completely switch up the layout at Lyft to make it feel like an elevated experience. And like, I don't know if individually we would have gotten to that point.
Right.
So yes, he's correct. I did freak out.
for hours.
I did freak out because I don't know if you have ever watched Friends, but I have this problem
Yes.
that Monica Geller has, where she needs to please the people, and like I need people to think that we're great and that they have no ill will feelings towards us or our events. Like, I hate disappointing people, genuinely.
Right.
And I feel like it's a reflection on us. So I definitely take it like very personal when people, like, we, for better or for worse, post up anonymous surveys to our athletes after every event. And as you can imagine, we get anonymous feedback that's not great. And I have to like sit through those and digest each one, whether it was necessarily the best feedback or not, like something we can actually do about. But I take it very personally. I think you're right in that you kind of take some action and get it figured out while I'm freaking out a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think that day I literally like went for a run and told myself, what's the worst that could happen? We have to cancel the event. People are mad. We send them their money back. No one's dying. No one's child is sick. Like, at the end of the day, those things are not great, but the worst that could happen is still not, in the grand scheme,
Yeah, people will lose.
terrible thing.
People will lose trust, but they'll also understand like this situation was out of our hands, and we try
Yeah.
to do the best thing that was right by them. And at the end of the day, we're not a big corporation. We're two people, and people
Yeah.
tend to sympathize with people in a very personal way. And we get feedback all the time about like how personable we are and how people can feel the humanness about how we run our business and our passion. And as much as it would suck to deliver that bad news, people would understand.
We have a real passion for it. Like, we're just sitting here talking about powerlifting events, right? And it's kind of like, are we making it a bigger deal than it is? But then I think back to the way that I felt competing, especially like my first competition, and how that made me feel. And it was almost like becoming a new person, like unlocking a new like confidence outlook, or like, oh wow, I could do that. And it did bleed over to other areas of my life. And I think just thinking about how it made me feel, how, I met you because of it, like, it is more than just picking up some weight or whatever.
For sure.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
and like I think back to now, like now I'm pretty far attached from powerlifting competitively or competing, not being competitive, both actually. But just how I felt like in the events that we're trying to create, like trying to recreate some of like my nostalgia, like these big events and the hype around it, and just trying like remembering as an athlete thinking about going to one of these big events, like
Yeah.
your mind is consumed by it. It's not just
Yes.
when you're lifting, you're just consumed about going to the gym and hitting that number and knowing what your training is and having a hard time going to sleep because you're just imagining yourself with that weight and wanting to go do it. You're also thinking about this really grand event, right?
Hmm.
So like I can understand it from that perspective, and
Yeah.
like we don't want to disappoint and do want to
Right.
create that, and like I get like it is much more than just a meet for people. Like
Yeah.
people really throw their whole lives
feel
into
like
it. It's not just a hobby, and I think
right.
people that say that, like it's insulting to people that just
It
say that
is, yeah.
powerlifting is a hobby.
Yeah.
You know, that I
There
think
is
it just
like
like really like just what's the word? Starts with a D.
Diminishes.
Demeaning,
Yeah.
demeaning to the
diminishes. Yeah.
diminish. Well, demeaning, yeah, to the person who is putting so much of their time and mind and just thoughts toward it. So
Yeah. I don't know. I just like I think that I can I swear
Yeah,
you feel like a fucking superhero version of yourself when you're
absolutely.
when you're especially on like at your best day, and
yeah, not
then
in
Yep.
the off season, but during
yeah,
peaking,
like
like
but
you
on your
feel
best day, you look
awesome.
back and it's like a really proud moment. So it means a lot to us to provide that experience to every single person that chooses to compete with us because now there are so many options. We had this conversation with you, 2.5 years ago, and the
Hmm.
options were so limited in terms of
Hmm.
like where to compete and what kind of meets were happening. And now it's kind of blown up. But it's great. Like we're happy
It's
to see it.
fantastic. Yep.
Yeah, and we all work together, but we all kind of are in some way, shape, or form, I guess, in competition to some degree, who's going to do which meet. But the pool's so big, so you can't really look at it that way too much.
Well, I look at it as like if you're competing with one another and it's leading to higher and higher levels of production for the athlete,
Yeah,
it's just going to bring more people into the sport.
right.
And
Yes.
there's a few things that I really want to highlight. The first being that like your goal is to serve the people who are attending the meets and to
Mm-hmm.
provide them with the best value possible. You mentioned if you had to cancel, you would have returned their money. There's a lot of meet directors that wouldn't do that same thing. And we're not going to name names, but it happens. And these people continue to operate with poor business practices and not put the athletes first.
Yeah.
The other is that, yeah, there is an expectation that as much as we preach as coaches, and I know Chesco, you do the same, you're like, your clients want to approach every meet like it's the last one they'll ever do.
Yeah.
And like I'm sitting here as someone who did the last meet that they'll ever do. And I wish that I didn't have that approach with the earlier meets that I did. But at the end of the day, as a meet director, you're trying to provide them that experience
Mm-hmm.
of the biggest possible stage and the lighting and the crowd and the MC and the live stream.
Yeah.
So they feel like that superhero.
Yeah.
And you can really cultivate that sort of emotion in somebody. And I'm sure there are people who, if they went and competed somewhere else where there wasn't such an emphasis on the experience, that maybe they wouldn't have had the results that they did. Maybe they wouldn't have lifted as well because they didn't feel like they were a fucking rock star on the stage.
Yeah. I think about that too, like how, I mean, if this is your first meet and you're choosing to do it with us, imagine we've all done some dungeon style.
Oh,
No
yeah.
MC, no screens. What is even going on? No warm up room. I remember warming up at one of the biggest meets in Florida with a weightlifting bar for deadlifts. Like you're one of the big. You're a 3 platform meet in South Florida in a very well known federation, and you can't even get the proper equipment except for one record breaker in another in her own room using a special bar. Like stuff like that kind of ruins the experience for you. And
Totally.
if that's your, you might say maybe the sport's not for me. So we do have a lot of first time lifters. I think we survey people, and it's always like
Yeah.
50% of our lifters, it's their first meet ever, which I love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially if their first experience to lifting is one of your events. Like, that's a big responsibility.
Yeah, and it's gutsy on their part too, because it's not a small meet. Like,
No.
I mean, I think we've all been guilty of it, where you're like, am I strong enough to do my first event when you're first starting out? Like, am I strong enough to do a meet? Well, I want to do a small one because I'm not that strong or whatever. So I love that people want to do our events.
Yeah, for sure. And listen, I know that you guys are going to blow it out of the water, so I'm super excited. Um, I want to switch the conversation over to a topic that, you know, we broached it briefly before we went on live, and you guys got really fired up about it. So I'm excited. I'm excited for this conversation. Um, because we can look at it through two lenses. So obviously Francesco works with us at Master Athletic Performance, and Sarah, you've been an athlete and worked with a number of coaches, and now you're a mom, not necessarily competing at this time. What is it like for you both? Obviously, still invested in your own health. What does your fitness look like now as compared to before you guys started your family?
It's drastically different. You know, expectation and just the approach is far from the same. There didn't go a single day where I didn't break over 10,000 steps or even 15,000. Like if I go through my Fitbit badges or look at my data, like I was outside or making sure I was getting every step, going out of my way, pacing, whatever. Because not only was I crazy, I kind of like the dopamine hit when you get that 10,000 steps, but I made it a priority to go to the gym despite how I was feeling and coming back
Mm-hmm.
and being able to take a nap because I could do that. You know, I could work really early in the morning, get all my work done, go to the gym, come back, take a nap, do nothing all day.
Right.
Now it's not like that. I got a couple littles that need me, need my full version of me. And before I kind of go more into it, I really hate when people say that like you never regret the workout that you just did or going to the gym
Yeah.
the day before. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
It's absolute bullshit as a parent. Your kids expect you to be the full version of yourself every single time they look at you or every
Absolutely.
single day. And you go to the gym and push really hard. Man, you're not the full version of yourself anymore. You're half that person. You're fucking tired. You're lazy. Like my kid wants me to wrestle with them, throw them on the bed, do all this stuff. Tried to do a powerlifting peak or a little powerlifting blog a couple months ago, and I'm like, man, is this how I felt every day before? It was, and it just didn't matter anymore because I didn't have those demands asked of me. I could just
Rot
veg,
on the couch.
yeah, or just not move fast if I didn't want to. With the kids, they want
Right.
me to play with them. They want me to be the person that they know me to be. So like my approach to training has had to change quite a bit. And I know one day I'll get the itch again, maybe soon, maybe not, to go be competitive and sacrifice and look back and regret that I ever sacrificed any of that time with my kids for powerlifting or anything else. But it has had to change drastically to the number of days that I'm training, to how long I'm in the
Mhm.
gym, to the exercise selection that I'm doing, to the amount of thought that I'm putting into the gym, to the kind of goals that I want to set. And I don't want to say that I've had to settle, but I am very happy with being able with how I've reframed my life and my choices
Mhm.
and the directions I'm going. And I think that reframing is the most powerful tool that people haven't figured out, or the most
Oh yeah.
important skill set. And like being able to see what you have and where you're going and what you need to do or what's needed to get you where you need to go. Like this shit's not complicated. I tell my clients all
No.
the time, like, this nutrition is so easy.
So easy.
It's super simple. It's when you're trying to go into one of the extremes that you have to pay attention to some nuance. But otherwise, know the principles. Everything else is super easy. As long as you learn the skills to kind of, manage eating, appetite,
Mhm.
social situations, all that stuff. But on a fundamental level, like it's super easy. Same thing with training. You just have to go in there and get to like RP9 or 8 or 9 most of the time, RIR of 1 or 2, whatever. Put in some effort, not do junk volume, do compound lifts, and get 2 to 3 workouts in a week. You know, easy, super easy. People have a hard time accepting that until they do it or realize that they can't do the 4 to 5 to 6, 7 days a week all the time or ever, and they have to go through those growing pains of failure. And I tell my clients all the time, like, you need to, well, I don't tell them this until they fall on their face, but I like, you have to go through those steps where
Yeah.
you find it really challenging and say you can't do it to actually do it. And Sarah's done that a number of times, and she'll continue to do it where she tries too hard to go jump in on things and then has to scale back once she realizes. But I like to compare it to a bad relationship. Like, once you're out of a bad relationship, all you can do is think about is the good times, and then you trick yourself to go back into that relationship. But time is, what's the saying about time? Time is, I'm forgetting, like, basically clouds your judgment or is all forgiving, and then you go back and you're like, what the fuck am I doing? But we all have to go through that feedback loop or that cycle.
Of course.
My issue is I have no chill, and I can't just like, work out just to work out. I like to be, I'm very results driven. I like to see progress. I like to work towards something. I want to do some kind of competition. Like, I'm dying to do a competition. I signed up for an 8K next week because I just need, like a couple days ago, because I just need to go, like, perform. I don't know why. Maybe I need therapy, but in terms of like
competing is cheaper.
Competing is just, true. It's something in me that I just want to drive towards, and I always like to be working towards something. So I might join an app and I'll do it without telling him because it would give me a million reasons not to do it. And I've done all the apps. I've done all the different styles of training. Like, after Javi was born, I was still in my powerlifter, I was still in my powerlifter mindset. And I started to try to lift, like, pretty much right away. And I realized very quickly I was weak in my head, much weaker than what I wanted. And it wasn't motivating me. So I was like, okay, I'll start running. I'll run, because then at least I'm doing cardio. It's more results. It's something I can kind of ease into. And then I started doing the street parking app. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it's it's a CrossFit style. Okay. I loved it because there was a daily workout. It was something that was made for people to do in, like, their garage. It was very simple. And then they also had, like, a library of workouts I could do. And I felt like, okay, these are 20 to 30 minute workouts where I literally go kill myself for 20 minutes straight, because that's CrossFit for you. And I did see good results.
Yeah, I think the big thing for that was that with some of the stuff you're choosing is that you had no benchmarks to reference. So all you could see, like you were kind of saying that about running, like, all you could do was see some form of progress. Oh, I've never done a clean with a dumbbell. Okay, let's see how much, like, I didn't know I could lift this. So there's nothing to compare to, while still giving you that feeling that you're pushing yourself.
Yeah, but I like it because I was like a beginner. So it was like everything was progress.
That's what I mean, right?
Noob, yeah. But then I felt, after I got through that and I started feeling stronger, I fell back into the powerlifting loop. I signed up for a meet, ended up dropping out because we did our wedding, and
you lost motivation. It just wasn't a priority anymore.
And then I got pregnant again. But after Santi was born, I guess bounced back way faster than I did the first time. And I don't know if that's like mind, muscle, body thing, but also confidence around, like, what I was doing. I didn't do the CrossFit style stuff. I went right back to lifting and cardio. But it was at a much, like, it wasn't nearly as intense as the first postpartum round.
Right.
But in general, it's just a mindset shift. Like Chesco said, like, the expectation has to change. Like, you're not going to spend 2 or 3 hours a day. Remember that a day, like a month ago, where we both pushed deadlifts, like, really hard, and we were fucking knocked out from them for like a day and a half. Like, we were both just zombies. Because we were like, how do we do this all the time? We can't keep this up with our kids. Like, all we wanted to do was just chill the rest of the day because we were so exhausted. Our, like, central nervous systems were shot or whatever, and it's just not sustainable, and that's fine.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. Sorry, I'm just going to finish Sarah's or add to it, but, like, the fact that it's unsustainable is okay.
Yeah.
I don't think that what you're doing at any point needs to be sustainable forever. It just
Right.
needs to respect, where you're at, what your current values are, and how they change. Like November, December, I really wanted to push lifts. I had some goals. I'm like, how quickly can I get back to a 500-pound squat? Bench 350, pull over 5 without having deadlifted, squatted, and benching for, over a year. Got there in like 7 weeks. I'm like, oh, the stuff that I've been doing is maintaining a good deal of strength. I can
Yeah.
get back there pretty quickly. Like 7 week time, I can do it. And I pushed it, and then I lost interest, and that was it.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of framing your goals as like they just kind of come and go, and you can jump on the peaks and drop off on the valleys, but still respecting your values, like what you value really, like a lot. When I programmed for Sarah, I understood like she still wants to push it. She still needs to feel like she's doing something that's kind of hard. Okay, great. We're just going to add a top set in, and the number of reps that you do is going to be dependent on how you feel. You feel like doing a single? Cool, let's do a single. You don't feel like doing a top set because you're not feeling amped because work's been bullshit? Don't do any top set. Let's just do the work. But if it's as long as we're doing sets, or what do they call it now? Not working sets, sets with effort. I'm blanking on what the terminology that's now used.
Like high effort sets.
Yeah, high effort sets, and not junk volume. It's okay. We just need to go in there, but we need to do things that I know that you're going to like and are actually going to push it on, or it's going to make you feel that dopamine rush, or feel like you've accomplished something. And kind of just going in and out of those phases, but understanding where you are at any moment, but still knowing what the macro goal is. And her macro goal is the same as mine, maintaining a physique that we like, that we feel comfortable in. And I have been there for the last, I want to say like I'm blessed, but I'm very fortunate that I'm very confident with how I look and have looked for the last 10 years. Like I have very little body image issues, which is great. I like it. But like I understand other people and how they're feeling because I've been doing it for so long.
I want to touch on the body image thing from like a mama's perspective, but I want to see what you were going to say first, Paul.
Well, what strikes me as really interesting through both of what you're saying is you have to be very clear on your value system before you can make any sort of judgment on what your expectations should be. But I think the challenge arises that for a lot of us who've competed at a high level, a lot of our self-worth comes from our ability to perform. And that, like, I took a very similar approach when I transitioned from powerlifting to bodybuilding because I didn't have a frame of reference for how much muscle can I build. A lot of the exercises that I was choosing, I didn't know how strong I was in them. And I purposefully actually avoided squatting, benching, and deadlifting in any reasonable variation because I didn't want my ego to play into it at all. And that was actually something that was refreshing for me after my injury, was that like, I'm literally starting at zero. So everything is a PR. And it took my ego completely out of it. And I was able to disconnect and just do the work. And I think that alignment between values, expectations, and then understanding your ego and where you draw your self-worth from, I can almost guarantee, actually, I know for a fact, if you never trained again, but your kids loved you and thought you were the best parents in the world, I don't think you would give a fuck.
It'd be sad.
I would say if I never lifted like another PR.
Yeah, if you never lifted another PR.
Yeah, I'd be totally okay with that.
Yeah.
Like I have numbers that I know that I could have hit if I was given the opportunity. Like if I had made my second attempt, I would have made a bigger third jump. That that I'm like, oh, I could have done that, but I don't ever think about it in like this disappointing way that I'll never get to attempt that. I'm fine with what
I hit the goal that I had, which was the 500 Wilks. And even though I had probably my worst day actually, I hit that goal and I was completely okay with walking away from it. And I am actually okay with never getting there again because I know what it took to get there, and I don't think soon am I willing to. Oh my god!
On my best day, I didn't even hit a PR.
Yeah,
I hit a 2.5 kilo bench PR, but everything else, like, I finally put lifts together to go like I think 8 for 9.
But I want to go back to the body image thing
Yeah,
because
for sure.
I will say that before I had babies, I had like no self-esteem. Okay.
Okay.
For whatever reason, I just had poor self-esteem. Self-confidence was pretty low. And as a lifter, when I first started getting into powerlifting, my beginner eyes were at hybrid, which is not
Right.
very, like, yes, very motivating, but wow, does it make you feel like weak? And, because you're around some of the strongest lifters in the world, and they're coming in and out of the gym and stuff. You're just a little pipsqueak, as Hayden said once. And so that was like what was strong to me. And so for me, I was never going to get there. Right. Mm-hmm. And I felt good about the things I hit or whatever, but then I'm like, in terms of body image, still very much like not happy with what I saw. I think I had moments where I was happier, but never like, I don't know. Do you think I had?
No, she was never happy. Most people aren't. And I think that's totally,
that's normal.
The saying is, with going to the gym is, the first day you go to the gym is the first day you'll be forever small or something like.
The old Dom Mazzetti quote.
Yes, yeah, something like that. Like you just always feel like you could be better, and it's not a good thing, but it's also a good thing because you're always hungry for progress and pushing yourself. So in one way, you can frame it as a positive, and then in another, it's extremely negative because you're never happy with the way that you look.
But I will say that once I got pregnant, right, it was a whole new experience. I had no idea how my body was going to respond, like genetically, mentally, physically, whatever. And I gained over 50 pounds with Javi, and I'm 5'2". Like that was a lot of weight. I think we did it I say we, because he definitely helped like guide me and stuff, but there was no like restricting or anything like that. But I think I gained it in a way that it wasn't like really fast all at once, like whatever. So I did have a pretty tough point to come back from, but after he was born, but I knew I was going to get pregnant again. And I knew I didn't want to carry any of that weight over, right?
Right.
And then Santi, I got pregnant with Santi. I gained, I think, 35 pounds with him. Yeah. So gained less weight, was happy about that. Again, not necessarily on purpose, just kind of happened that way because I was chasing Javi around.
No, it's because we weren't in COVID and lockdown, and it was the time of the pregnancy was more of the winter with Javi, so activity was down. We couldn't go anywhere. We were ordering more for comfort because the world was really shitty and we were kind of depressed. There's a lot of lifestyle and social
confounding variables for sure.
Yeah.
But I guess I hate the term bounce back, but after, my postpartum with Santi, I felt almost like completely back to normal much sooner than I did. And I genuinely feel more confident in my body now than I ever did before. And I am not as muscular as I was. I am not as lean as I was. But the fact that I managed to birth two beautiful little boys and found my way back to my body that I'm in now, like, I'm really proud of that. And I think I've even posted that on my story before to say, like, fuck a 400-pound deadlift. Like, I'm proud of this. I'm proud of growing human life and then finding a way back to myself. Because a lot of the times women might get a rep like, you're selfish if you're willing to put in that much time for yourself. Like, you should be focused on your babies and don't care about losing the weight. No, like, I would be miserable if I weighed 20 pounds more than I normally do. And this is me. I'm not saying this is the way it is for everybody or should be, but for me specifically, I would be miserable. I would be sad and tired. I wouldn't feel good. I wouldn't feel like myself. Mm-hmm. Like, why would I? So it wasn't like I was obsessed or restricting in any way. I eat cookies and ice cream every single day. Like, I'm not
sick. I want that diet.
we eat a lot of trash.
I can't. If you tell me right now I can't eat cookies, like, I will only want.
And we're always having Oreos.
Especially the cookies that you make. Like, oh man.
So yeah, like there's no restricting. I'm still breastfeeding. I still have a full-time job, but I do make it a priority at some point in the day to get in here.
Most days.
Most days.
Like 4 to 5 days.
5 days a week. Because I feel better. It's not
Yeah.
just like, oh, I need to look good. It's to feel good. Like that is the driver now, is to feel good and to feel.
Yeah.
And I still get woken up 3 or 4 times a night. Like I got to find a way to have energy somehow, you know?
Yeah.
So
And I think it's important that you qualified your statements by like, hey, this is for me what I need.
yes.
And because every person's going to be different and each one of us has our own insecurities, our own triggers. But I think it's important for you to say like, hey, yeah, 400-pound deadlift was cool, but making people was way cooler.
Yeah. For
And
me.
if you can get to a place postpartum where you're just confident in the body that you're living in and capable in the things that you need to be doing while being able to show up as a mom.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would venture that if you weren't able to have the outlet of training and feel confident in your training, you wouldn't be able to show up as well as you do as a mom.
100%.
And I'm a firm believer that you have to fill your cup first. Like even if you're a parent, like if you're not there mentally and you're not there emotionally, they're going to be able to tell.
Yeah.
And I'm not a parent. So like this is purely from my own life perspective.
Yeah.
That,
no, it's true.
I mean, Liv and I have spoken about it because we want to start a family next year. It's like before we start a family, we need to have a gym in the garage so that we can take care of ourselves so that we can be there for our family.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing too. Like we're super thankful that we're in the situation that we're in where we have this space because we know not everyone has this. And if we had to go to the gym down the street and that was how we got, like, it would not happen. Like how could it would be very difficult.
I wouldn't want to. I think I would make sure that Sarah went, but I think I would
It would
rather
be very challenging.
just get a set of dumbbells or do something at home or just not lift at all.
You'd probably have huge arms. You'd probably just do arms.
But we're fortunate for that. And I 10 out of 10 recommend what you say too. It is so important. But even we're talking about it from like being a parent's perspective a lot, but also in a relationship too. Like you also want to be able to show up for each other and make time for each other. This is kind of our number one way that we get to spend time together is getting in the gym together. Even if, Santi's in the pack and play while we're working out or Javi's, watching a Lego movie, like we're not against screen time so that for 45 minutes so we can have our time together too. So I'm thankful for we get that time together as well.
Yeah, I don't mind it.
Yeah. I think having anchors in your relationship that kind of pull you back together. Because, regardless if you, for Liv and I, we have the business together, you guys have a business together, you also have, children, those things are responsibilities that are grouped, but they can tend to pull you apart because it's never just one-on-one time.
Yeah. And
so
go ahead.
I was just going to say, so if you're able to use fitness as that anchor to pull you guys back together, like that makes that time even more valuable.
Mm-hmm. And so it's not every time, but it is when we can help. I prefer training with him for sure. I think he's just happy to do it whenever he can get it in, but
I prefer to train alone.
Yeah, I like him and
I like being with her, but I just want to get it done at the soonest possible moment so I could be done with it.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, as the day goes on,
it's
the likelihood of me training goes closer to zero. So the sooner I can get it done, the better. If she's here, great. If she's not, I want to do it.
And you had asked earlier about boundaries. The boundaries that get set are when I say, Chesco, we're not talking about meat stuff right now. That's it. That's the boundary. And he respects it when I say that. Sometimes I just have to say, like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about work. I don't want to talk about meat stuff. Let's talk about literally anything else. And that doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen sometimes.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
Yeah.
You had mentioned a few things with postpartum and, the social aspect around it, especially with social media, that bothered you as a new mom. Talk to me a little bit about that.
So I don't think and I alluded to it a bit, I personally don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to
bounce back. But I think there's like an asterisk to it. I was not trying to bounce back to exactly who I was before.
That was just a product of your lifestyle.
Yeah,
And
but my goal wasn't for me to look exactly like I did before. Like it wasn't that. It was feel like I just wanted to feel like myself. And I think that's totally fair. I don't think there's any issue with that. Like, yeah, I was weighing myself every day as a unit of measure. What the scale said did not dictate my behavior. So I have a healthy, again, I have a healthy relationship with the scale.
Right.
I have a healthy relationship with food and training. I don't see a 2-pound jump on the scale and then go do cardio for 2 hours. So but I'm sure some people do. I'm sure some people are like, I literally can't weigh myself every day because it'll send me down a rabbit hole, right? Or I won't eat for 6 hours, or like, I don't know. Everyone's different, but that's how it was for me. I don't know. Maybe you should give your perspective from a nutrition.
You're incredibly fortunate to not have that kind of relationship with the scale or around food. Like Sarah doesn't have an issue with moderation, doesn't have an issue with like after dinner, we get the tub of ice cream literally every night. Tub of ice cream, put it on the table, and we don't get bowls. We just go spoons in, and we split it between us and the kids. And
I bet by the time it's all said and done, I probably have 10 bites. Like really.
Yeah, but my point is like you don't have an issue with moderation.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
She was always worried
cutting myself
about
off.
getting back to her body weight. And like I understand it when people look at, especially for someone who gets pregnant in such a temporary, transitory phase, like you look at yourself and you don't recognize it. There's that disconnect between the image of yourself in your brain to what you're seeing in the mirror. Mm-hmm. And that's what sets people off. So like for her and for many women, like you don't have to worry about going back to where you were because your habits and lifestyle and behaviors kind of help dictate that. If you've been lean all your life, you're going to get lean again. Some people do have to work harder than others, not just because they have a bad relationship with food, but like we know, like some people are just more what's the word I'm thinking of? Just have heightened
expectations.
No, don't do that. I got this. Heightened appetites, hunger signals, and that's why Ozempic is like we have an obesity epidemic, and it's not just because of the food availability and food tastes so good, and people are lazy and make bad choices. Some people do have a harder time managing their weight because they have a satiety hunger issue that is just in their genetics, and that's tough. But for us and for Sarah, we're lucky. Sarah doesn't cook. I make all the meals.
I cook sometimes.
You cook sometimes, but like you eat the food that I portion out, and then we don't track anything. I refuse to track. I haven't done it in years. But like I talked about, nutrition super simple. Get 4 to 5 protein feedings a day. Don't eat too much food otherwise, and that's pretty much how we live our lives. Everything's filled with fruits and veggies at all the meals and whatever. But we still eat out. We order in. We don't track. We eat the things that we want to eat. Like for lunch day, I had a McDonald's wrap, and Sarah got a McDouble. We split it out with pie, and we ate some French fries. Like we want to eat when we want to eat it. We're still very healthy, but we're very fortunate, and we understand that. But I understand like having all this culture pushed down in one way or the other, and people can just. I feel like Instagram and social media, like people just need to throw things out there to justify their own decisions or their own feelings to make themselves feel better or to get feedback about how they're doing and justifying it. And I don't know. I have feelings about it, and it's just everything is just content now.
Everything
is content.
Holy
this
shit!
Is content.
Yeah,
just sending things back and forth. Like this is just content. Like this is content. Now, this is something that people feel they need to share and post just for the likes and the comments and the followers because everybody wants to be
the nefarious.
I should definitely do that too because they would help my business. But
I think the nefarious aspect of it comes down to, and I see this a lot with the female clients that I work with, especially around body image, is the amount of information and the amount of emotion that gets triggered by that information
Mm-hmm.
puts them in a position where they feel like they're doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so the motivation to undertake these behaviors and, strategies, while could be seen in a positive light as like, hey, you're managing your nutrition, you're tracking, you're doing this, you're doing that. It's actually like, no, I'm just doing this because this is quote unquote the right thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rather than taking the time to figure out like, is my relationship with food good? Do
Right.
I have healthy lifestyle habits? Am I happy as a person? Am I feeling competent and capable in the things that I'm doing? Am I confident in my body and what it's capable of?
Mm-hmm.
Those are going to feed the body composition changes
Mm-hmm.
fucking 10x more than any sort of thing that you're doing right or wrong.
Yeah. And it's always so interesting to me when I share like my progress picture stuff updates on my story, because when
Mm-hmm.
people comment, it's a DM, right? It's not for the world to see, the 100 people that see my post to see. But I'll always get a comment that's like, I didn't even have a baby and I don't look like that. Or, oh my God, you have 2 kids. I have no excuses. What should I do? And I don't share the things I share to try to guilt anyone into feeling some kind of way, but inevitably that is what happens. Like I always run anything I share by Chesco to be like, does this sound like I'm like full of myself right now? Because I'm not trying. Like, yes, I am proud of what I
Yeah,
did.
and you should be. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
but it's not meant to put anyone else down that hasn't had the experience, right? That's them. That's their experience and how they want to consume it, whatever. But that is
Yeah.
definitely a challenge with social media.
I think that's a challenge that we all face in some different ways. Like I made a post recently about our move, and I had a number of people reach out to me saying like, "Oh, it must be nice to be so fortunate to be able to do that." It's like, yeah,
Right.
it is, but I
Yeah.
also worked for 10 years to
Yeah.
build the business to a place where it is and went through a
Yeah.
2-year application process
Oh yeah.
to do it. It's like this wasn't like a decision I was like, "Oh, I'm just going to do this and snap my fingers and it happened." I
Yeah.
worked for it.
Yeah.
In the same way that maybe no one sees the work, and and this is the reason I think those emotions come to light is like they didn't see the work that you did on your relationship with food. They didn't
Right.
see the work that you did on your relationship with yourself. They didn't see your ability to moderate your food intake or to have a healthy relationship with exercise.
Yeah.
They just see it as this person who had a beautiful baby boy and then a couple months later had the body that she wanted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
And
that's
we get the
tough for
same
people to
comment.
swallow.
Oh, must be nice because you have a gym in your house. Like, no wonder. And like to your point, must be nice. I mean, we worked for it. Like, we built
Yeah.
it together.
You've climbed the corporate ladder in your own profession. Chesco has been doing business for as long as I have.
Yeah,
This is how these things happen. They're not instantaneous.
exactly.
And while they feel that, I think it really, people get that snapshot, but they don't see like, I say all this stuff is super easy, and it is, to explain it, but the skills
To
that
actually put
to
it
get
in.
here
Yeah.
took me 10 years to
Yeah.
have this mindset, to be able to understand and empathize and connect with people, meet them where they are, figure out ways that I can trick
Absolutely.
Sarah into getting the body that she wants without putting as much effort as she thought that she once had.
Trick her into it.
Right? Like, knowledge is power, but like being able to know what to do with it and how to use it
Yeah.
while still respecting people's values and their personalities and their triggers and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
I have to add another asterisk to something you just said. I have never ever felt like Chesco was trying to, in a negative way, push me to get a body back. Like, do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It was never from a negative, like, hey, listen, like, you need to lose some weight. You need to get in the gym. Are you sure you want to eat that? I have never gotten something like that from him. I only got support and like, he knows I feel my best when I get in here, 3 or 4 times a week. And sometimes it's less about the fact with the kids. It's more about work. It's just being like, hey, can you take that call on the treadmill? I know he's not saying that to be like, hey, you're kind of chunky. You should probably go get a workout in. He's saying it like he knows I need it. And I just
Yeah.
need reminding. So I just have to put that out there because
I
some
think,
people
well,
might
I think
get
it's
that.
important. I think it's
Yeah.
really, really important. And even though, even though we don't have children, like Olivia is a professional bodybuilder.
Yeah.
So I get to be married to a woman who is stage lean,
Yeah.
and I could knock on her glutes like my desk.
Yeah.
And I also get to be married to this the other side of that amazing human being who is legitimately 55 pounds heavier than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, like, I always joke with her, I get to be married to like 5 different women.
We made
But
that before too.
but for me, what I find, and this is what it's a part of being in a healthy relationship. Like,
Yeah.
I'm attracted to her when she feels her most confident. And when she feels her most confident, it could be at any body size.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that she felt very low confidence being as heavy as she is now last off season.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now she loves her body. She loves the way she looks. She doesn't feel the best because she's, over 180 pounds. But to me, like, I would never, hey babe, like, getting a bit heavy here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think it's partly the delivery, right, of what you say and how you say it, but it's also the way you perceive it, right? Because he would say to me that he loved my body when I was super hugely pregnant. He would say he loved my body right after I had the baby, which was the hardest part for me. And I would literally be like, you're lying. Like, there's no way you love my body right now. And
selfishly, I would say, like, I love you because I did that to you.
Yeah.
Like, if you were like not that,
just
like,
a pregnant woman.
I don't like have anything against pregnant women.
Yeah.
But I'm not like fetishize a pregnant woman. But because she's my pregnant woman,
there's something about that.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, you'll get it, Paul. You'll get it. But
I'm all about it. I'm like, I totally told Liv. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I did struggle. But I honestly know he was being genuine. I don't think he was just filling me up with hot air. And I know that when he's pushing me to get in here, it's not because he thinks I need to be a certain way or look a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
So I could easily, if I wanted to like tap into being super self-conscious and that, I could be like, why are you saying that? What do you mean by that? Like, why do you think I'm fat or something? But I know that's just communication. That's relationship.
Like, going off self-conscious, I think if you were more self-conscious and I wasn't helping you feel confident, you'd be in the gym way more often.
Yeah.
Trying to feel confident.
If we didn't have a healthy, like, intimacy relationship and all that, and you were pushing, I feel like I could see.
And if Sarah didn't have the feelings she did around food, I'd definitely be way leaner. He definitely wants to.
He's like, I eat more cheese now than I ever did in my life.
Bro, I don't know how you can say that. The last time we hung out, I was post-show and you were just as lean as me.
I'm still lean, but like, I would be way leaner. It's just the way that I eat and like eating habits and the foods that I gravitate to more, which is okay. And I think a big part of that is just the way where we live. Where before we were surrounded by fitness people living in Miami. And
everything was walkable.
We're just around parents, man. Like, why do I have to look so big? Why do I have to be the most jacked guy in the room?
You are.
I still am, but like, I don't need to be any more jacked. Like, no one's looking at me. It doesn't help me get confidence. It doesn't help me make friends.
Yeah.
It might actually scare people into thinking I'm like too obsessed with the gym. And that's something I think about too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to go to the grocery store and somebody makes some questions about if I lift. I hated that when I was younger, and I hate that now still. So sometimes I just wear more clothes than I need to.
I will.
But like, even you, like around moms, like, why do you need to be so lean? Like, look at the people around you. You are already the leanest, most fitness. Like, it's health. Whenever I tell people when they're trying to get ready for a beach vacation, like, when you go to the beach, look at the people around you.
You are the fittest one.
Oh my God!
Like, you're always the leanest person, but like, look how comfortable those people are.
Yeah.
In their bodies.
They don't
care.
Showing
more skin than you want to. Take that in, one. And then number two, just take in the fact that you, like compared to the population, you're already like super fit. Yeah. And the algorithm just shows you the point zero
The
zero
fittest
zero
of the
one percent
fit.
because
Yeah.
nobody wants to look at people like you. That's not what gets clicks and views.
Oh
It's not
man,
totally
when
but like, yeah.
we went on our cruise, like it was like a couple years
I bet
ago.
you guys look like
I've been on a few
freaks.
cruises.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. So both of us were like peak off-season fat. Okay. And
So
I was like, man, I'm going to look like shit in my bathing suit. This is going to be stupid. And we were by far the fittest people
oh
on
yeah,
the boat.
100%.
And then when we went to Puerto Rico, I dieted before the trip because I had, I got out of my wheelchair. I stayed heavy just for my recovery. And then I was like, fuck this. I feel like shit. I'm going to diet. So as soon as I healed up, I dieted down for about 12-ish weeks. When we were on the beach in Puerto Rico, I looked like a fucking freak.
Yeah.
And it was awkward for
People
me.
are like,
I'm like, all right, like,
yeah,
like this is weird.
I
like that though.
I
don't like it. I don't want attention. I don't want people talking to me.
Yeah.
I just want to be left alone.
I am reminded at my level, like where I'm at the most, whenever I go to like work conferences, where I see people from like my company or other companies, they'll just be like what you're doing, it's not normal. It's not an everyday thing. Like,
yeah.
So like when I went to our kickoff in Florida in January, people were like, you had a baby when? And like low key, I was like 4 months ago. Like I love that.
Yeah.
I did. But so I'm kind of like in between the two where I'm like, I love getting reminded that no, it's not normal and I'm proud of it. But it does come with some weird connotations because people will be like, I'll be loading up my plate at the buffet and they'll be like, you're going to eat that? Like, ooh, must be break from the diet. And I'm like, I'm like, bro, this is how I eat all the time. Like, what? They just assume that I'm a freak because,
I play both sides of the fence because I grew up as a fat kid. So I got all the attention for being a fat kid. And now I get all the attention for being a freak. So I'm like, I'll prefer the freak.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you guys want to touch on, we mentioned it before the podcast, but, the proliferation of the healthy at every size. I kind of want to see Chesko's head explode. So I'm not going to ask the question. It'll be the last question we ask.
I'm glad you
talk
got
to me about
off
Haze, Chesko.
Oh, it just, I don't think that we should be glorifying being overweight, and I think for some people it works, but for many others it does not, and it makes people give permission to do so. And we see that a lot in the strength sports, where people will just kind of push, gaining weight or not being in a deficit and to, push the numbers when in reality, like they didn't need to gain weight or lose weight, or they could have lost weight and still gained strength. And it would have made them a healthier human being. But the pursuit of strength, even though the strength would have been more neurological, because they are new, or that's just, we see at the top level, the same guys are going to Sheffield or the IPF Worlds or whatever, competing at the same body weight, and they're still putting kilos on their total.
Yeah.
And it's not just because that they're the most elite people out there. It's because strength, for the most part, is neurological.
Yeah.
And like, while a bigger muscle might produce more strength, that's not always the case. And you have so much, like, I don't like telling my clients this, but body fat is stored energy. Like it's just sitting there waiting to be used. So if you're in a deficit and have a lot of body fat, you're still going to gain a lot of muscle because your body's going to use that body fat as fuel.
Yep,
and
exactly.
you'll be just fine until we get to that lean part. Like I was saying earlier, like once you get to those extreme ends of being really lean, or not even very lean, but lean, like then it becomes more important to pay attention to more just having a more structure to your diet and paying attention to the smaller detail. So I'm not a big fan of coaches kind of blanketing that onto clients or people. And I think it's more of like a scapegoat for them to kind of have, like when you are in a surplus mostly in a surplus, you can get away with so much things. And I think coaches like that, like you don't have to pay as much attention to recovery, sleep, stress, training. Like you can do more training, whatever, potentially. But there's less things that need to get checked off or be paid attention to. when people are just getting body fat, and then coaches don't really have an exit plan either for like when that person eventually gets burnt out from powerlifting because their programming sucked. Like, what do they do when they've gained the 30 pounds and they don't know what else to do, and they developed all these eating habits to get them? Like, it's hard to gain weight, like intentionally. Like, you have to go out of your way and to lose weight, unless you have those skills or someone kind of helping guide you. Like, it's really hard to, like, we don't have a weight loss problem, we have a weight maintenance problem. So people lose weight, they regain it because they still have those habits ingrained. So to push people up and have them develop these new habits and behaviors that get them up is really hard when it's ready for them to come back down. So I think glorifying gaining weight when it's not necessary, like while the BMI scale is not perfect, it's a pretty good indicator. Like, I know that I would be healthier at 165 pounds with less muscle, and you too, Paul, you at like 5'10", 5'11", you'd be much healthier, well below sub 200 with less muscle on you. It's
your body's just not meant to hold that much mass.
For the heart to push blood around you and keep you going. While there are benefits to having muscle mass, it's not to the extremes that you and I are. Most people that are listening to this podcast or after, like there is depreciating. To a point.
Someone needs to say CPAPs are not cool.
Like, they're not a rite of passage.
I love my CPAP. So I am absolutely, Sarah, I'm 245 pounds.
So you need a CPAP. Yeah.
I'm 5'10", 245. And I'm like, I know. I've had a CPAP since 2016.
Yeah, but you take that and you understand that you take it because you're not as healthy as you could be if you were below 200 pounds, and you understand that cost, right? And that's okay because you've taken on that cost. You understand what it means, but a lot of people are pushed to 245 pounds and aren't aware of that, or they're so young.
Oh my God,
too blinded by the short term, whatever they've determined to be this grand goal to really see what damage they're doing. And I don't want to talk about damage because, like, we've even seen that we've heard about the studies, like, as long as you stop smoking by 50, most of the negative health consequences of smoking kind of go away, which is crazy. It's crazy. I'm butchering the numbers, but like you can undo it. Or have we all seen like the drug addict or whatever that's cleaned up and now they're doing a million things and they look as healthy as ever? But like, understanding some of that stuff, I don't think that gets talked about, and it's just like glorify weight gain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a tough one because I agree with you on every level. And when I got down to, I think I got down to like 219 before Puerto Rico, and I was like, holy shit, I was 219 when I was prepping for my bodybuilding show, and I was like, this is a lot of mass. Weird. Yeah, it's a lot of mass, and I was like, okay, well, I didn't. The thing is for me, I didn't feel my best when I was that small.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually feel fantastic now at 245. Mm-hmm. Whereas, 10 years ago when I was 245, I felt like a bloated water buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
And the circumstances around those body weights are much different.
Yeah. Sure.
But at the end of the day, I think there's a lot to be said for how you feel.
Yes.
And
agreed.
How you perform and your goals at this time. Like, I know right now my priorities align in a way where I can train 2.5 hours a day and be totally fine. We don't have kids. Mm-hmm. I start work at 5 a.m. I finish work at 9 p.m. But I know that as soon as we do have kids, I won't have 2.5 hours of the day to train. And my work day is going to be a lot shorter because it'll be interrupted intermittently by being the best dad that I can be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to take advantage right now and do the things that I want to do because I know my priorities are going to change.
Yep.
So
be as selfish as possible while you can. But it makes it not because like I miss being selfish, but because I am at peace with it. I feel like I'm happy to be more selfless for our kids and for you and for our family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love it. Like, I'm totally fine with it, but yeah.
And I just want to clarify on the Hayes thing. Like, I think it's an issue of pushing people to gain weight. I think that it is, you can be healthy at, different sizes.
Definitely.
Up to a point. And for you, Paul, like, while you feel really good, holding on to that much muscle, and this is an issue for me too. Like I feel really good where I'm at, and I'm not sure if I would feel better, but I think my heart would appreciate it if I didn't have as much muscle.
You also were 20 pounds heavier.
No, I'm talking about right now.
Oh, okay. When we first started dating, you were over 200.
That BMI index, it exists for a reason.
Yeah.
Oh, right? I totally agree with you.
Yeah. So using how you feel is a very good marker.
Yes.
But that doesn't always mean.
But there's also other health markers that you can very easily access.
Yeah, and that's also important too.
Yeah.
Like respecting, not just what it looks like on paper. If you're using the BMI scale or whatever, or how kind of what's your quality of life going to be like for the next 30 years?
Yeah.
Do you want to live to 95 and not be as happy, but live to 85 and be happier? I think we all kind of take that decision.
Well, now that you're done fat shaming me, I think
you know what I was doing. I'm in the same boat.
I do for sure. Guys, thank you so much for sharing your time with me. I'll have links to where everyone can find Catalano Events. If you are in, if you're in Canada, up, I guess, northern United States, or just want to come do a badass meet, I think it's worth checking out your guys' meets. So thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
It's my pleasure. Everyone, thank you so much for listening. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and we'll catch you on the next one.